Dear colleagues, Russian President Vladimir Putin today congratulated the President of the United States Donald Trump by phone on his 80th birthday. As for the Ukrainian conflict, Trump once again emphasized the need to bring the hostilities to an end. He stated that he was prepared to exert pressure on both European partners and Kiev, including during forthcoming discussions at the G7 summit.
Revealed, details are emerging from the 55-minute Putin-Trump phone call held on the U.S. president's birthday. The Russian president held what is being described as candid talks with Trump as the U.S. president turned 80. Putin praised Trump's fighting qualities as the two leaders also discussed the U.S Iran peace deal. On the call, Trump is said to have agreed to pressure Europe and Ukraine at the G7 in a way that could favor Russia.
Dear colleagues, Russian President Vladimir Putin today congratulated the President of the United States, Donald Trump, by phone on his 80th birthday. The conversation was friendly and frank, and it lasted, my friends, about an hour. If you want the exact timing, it was precisely 55 minutes. As you understand, there was not only an exchange of pleasantries. President Trump heard not only kind words and wishes, but the leaders also discussed key topics of the current international situation, issues of developing bilateral Russia-U.S. relations, and possible contacts between representatives of both sides. As for the congratulations, they were informal in nature and reflected the character of the personal relations between the two leaders. The Russian president did not hide his respect for Donald Trump's fighting qualities, his ability to take a punch, successfully overcome obstacles, and persistently achieve his goals. By the way, our president also sent a congratulatory message, in which he likewise noted the outstanding character traits of the birthday celebrant, which contribute to his success as a person and as a politician. Donald Trump was moved by what was said, thanked him, and noted that Vladimir Putin was the first of all foreign leaders to call him at the White House. I would again draw attention to the fact that the conversation was informal, and I would say not without a touch of humor. I can even reveal a secret. The number 80 is not entirely pleasant for Donald Trump, because he is full of energy and strength. I will also add that Vladimir Putin, of course, extended his best wishes to First Lady of the U.S., Melania Trump, highly appreciating her role in efforts to reunite Russian and Ukrainian children with their families. In turn, Donald Trump conveyed greetings from his wife and expressed gratitude for the assistance provided to her by the Russian side. To conclude the ceremonial congratulatory part, I will mention that Vladimir Putin thanked him for the warm congratulatory message from Donald Trump on Russia Day, in which respect for the Russian people was expressed. Naturally, the situation surrounding the forthcoming memorandum of understanding between the U.S. and Iran was discussed during the conversation between Russian President Vladimir Putin and U.S. President Donald Trump. Donald Trump said that an agreement was close, and he expected that the results of the difficult but ultimately successful negotiations could be announced as early as today. He acknowledged that the path to an agreement had been thorny, with many obstacles, not only from the Iranian leadership, but that, in the end, the efforts of American negotiators, with the help of Pakistani and Qatari mediators, had made it possible to reach an acceptable outcome. Moreover, Donald Trump expressed his gratitude for Russia's commitment, and in particular for the proposals made to find constructive solutions. For our part, we express satisfaction that the conflict, which had the potential to set the entire region ablaze and beyond, appears, by all accounts, to have been contained. We noted our readiness to continue working towards stabilizing the situation and resolving the underlying issues, which will still require serious attention. As for the Ukrainian conflict, Trump once again emphasized the need to bring the hostilities to an end. He stated that he was prepared to exert pressure on both European partners and Kiev, including during forthcoming discussions at the G7 summit. The recent strikes on civilian targets on Russian territory are, of course, hindering the peace process. This has been noted. Trump also said that if the war were to end as soon as possible, this would open up the prospect of building a truly new quality of U.S.-Russian relations. For his part, Vladimir Putin put forward the idea that no attempts by the Kiev regime to strike at civilian infrastructure in Russia would alter the critical situation for Ukraine on the battlefield. In Evian Lesbanes, at the summit, the Europeans and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will undoubtedly try to present everything exactly the opposite way and will be able to offer only ideas aimed at dragging out the conflict and continuing military operations. And as for Zelensky, he should be reminded not to forget the tragedy of the Holocaust, instead of which he is organizing the reburial of Nazi criminals with full honors. If, however, the head of the Kiev regime once again makes overtures regarding a possible meeting with a Russian leader, then, as mentioned earlier, if he wants a meeting, let him come to Moscow. It is telling that Donald Trump, in response to this, spoke of the alliance between our two countries during the Second World War. He said that this is something we simply must not forget. Dear colleagues, I believe I have outlined for you all the key points from the telephone conversation that took place. It is probably worth mentioning, too, that Vladimir Putin, bearing in mind the successful staging of the 2018 FIFA World Cup in Russia, wished the American organizers of the current tournament every success. And one last thing. It has been agreed that U.S. President Special Envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, who are currently closely involved in Iranian affairs, will visit Russia again in the near future.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that we will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the U.S. will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HD videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.